Hi, my name is Sophie. I am a Girl Scout from Grafton, Massachusetts. And today we will be talking a lot about support and acceptance of the neurodiverse community. This is a topic I myself am very passionate about, so I hope you'll be able to join us for these few minutes to maybe learn a little and sort of even relate to what I am saying, because I hope that will be what the effect of this podcast.
Stunning. So I'm going to open up with a quote from someone, and I just love the take on it. So this is someone within the community where you live that answered a survey about their own experience or the experience of someone they know. And when asked, how do you support someone who's neurodiverse? They said, treat us like humans. We are all
Yes,
so different. We need to be asked. What do you think about that?
I think that is absolutely bang on. I said in a previous episode that a lot of people will see a diagnosis or disability before they see a human being with their God-given dignity and respect earned with being human. So that is absolutely true when they say to treat people within the community with respect, and permission is also a very big thing. Um, After all, um, I understand that this may also be a bit of an unheard subject, but you wouldn't ever push someone in a wheelchair without asking, or help someone without asking if they are unable to speak or have a hard time making eye contact because they have a mental disability or neurodiversity.
So my takeaway from that is even if you think you know what someone might need because they have a label such as being someone who identifies as neurodiverse, like being autistic or having ADHD, you shouldn't necessarily assume that you know what they need because it's
Yes,
just a label.
unless I will say, unless they strictly tell you that this is something that they need, then that is them asking for your help, perhaps. And that can also lead to a very healthy conversation, I would suggest, with many people. If you have someone in your life who is neurodiverse, to talk about what accommodations have to be made, what their point of views are of how you could help them, and vice versa, to create a sort of middle ground. And it's through these sort of nuanced discussions that I think you'll see, at least through my personal experience and my opinion, you'll see the best results in the lives of these people and their happiness by giving them this sort of room to make a middle ground.
Mm-hmm. So to give you basically like a made up scenario,
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't assume. So you tell me I am someone who has autism.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't assume that you need this special fidget just because my cousin, who also happens to have the same diagnosis, needs it. I should
Yeah.
ask you.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that that sentiment was captured.
Yes.
Something else someone said is that some of us need significantly more support than others. Some of us, like me, appear not to need any support, but we really do. How do you feel about that?
I feel like that is also bang on. Um, Autism, which is a highly common and um, highly thought of neurodiversity. Specifically, it's a spectrum. It's in its name. It's autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. There are no two people on planet Earth with autism or any neurodiversity who will be copy paste and therefore require the same accommodations or help. People with neurodiversity can need help with anything from using the restroom or speaking to quite literally understanding that they will at times be, so to speak, they will be a bit odd at times. That sort of understanding is an important accommodation I don't think enough people think of when they have someone in their life with neurodiversities.
I think one of the quotes from the people that you surveyed goes really well with that. And it says, be patient, be understanding, ask how you can help, and do research. Don't make any assumptions, don't stereotype neurodiverse people, and don't be judgmental.
Mhm. I would also
Mhm.
like to add on to this subject that the room for basic human error should also be accepted with grace, so long as the corrections are made or apologies. I would never expect absolutely anyone to automatically know these things. And if the receiving party being the person in the relationship with said person with a neurodiversity feels like they are being um unfairly targeted or even harmed by this sort of like walking on glass scenario, I would not want that. That's just as bad as if it were the other way around. So what I'm trying to stress is learning and discussion. I equally do not want anyone to walk into a situation with a person who may or may not be neurodiverse and assume based on me ironically telling you not to assume. There has to be discussion taking place. There
Mhm.
has to be give and take between both parties.
And I think that's a really big, I love that you said that there is room for error. Everyone makes mistakes, right? And I
Yes.
think a lot of people get nervous to make them. So then they just avoid, ever interacting with anyone who they might feel like they might accidentally insult.
Mm,
So to give people a way to approach this, how would you like someone to approach the conversation with you about you, be it what you need, who you are, things like that? How should they approach that conversation?
I honestly don't think I've ever thought of this, but if I had to like sort of like make a script, I suppose, for it, I would say that firstly, I think most people would like a warning. So I wouldn't like some random person on the street to start talking to me about start having a philosophical conversation with me about like neurodiversity and acceptance. Um so, start talking to someone and then politely ask something along the lines of like, "Hi, I know you do this. Can I know why?" Or like, "Could you tell me a little more about your neurodiversity?" If they say no, they say no. But I myself know a lot of people, myself included, who won't mind telling you about themselves, um, because for every person who may be ashamed to some degree of their neurodiversity, there are also people who are immensely proud of it, myself included. So you should approach it as such as a simple question. And if they say no, again, they say no. But if they say yes, then you can sort of unlock a lot of information, not only about them, but about how you could make a relationship with them work, whether it be a friendship, mutual friendship, teacher part, teacher student partners, etc.
So it seems like the sentiment is ask from a place of wanting to understand,
Yes.
learn, and grow.
Yes.
Mhm. Now, if someone was to accidentally make a mistake, and maybe you can think of a time in your life when someone has done something or said something to you that was perhaps accidentally offensive, how would you prefer they approach the apology or that conversation?
I think that I personally would prefer if, again, it was taken sincerely, as any offense to another person should be, if you chose to apologize to them. Um, and of course, this will vary based on what the offending act was. Comments should be taken bit more casually, but still sincerely, compared to something more major, which is, I suppose, to what that would be like the definition of those of like the scale of the problem, if you will, should be left to the person's own should be left to their own sort of, god, I can't think of the word, their own um for lack of better words, all it should be treated like a normal apology, but at the same time I think growth also has to be made in order for it to be effective. If that makes absolutely any sense.
It does. You took the words right out of my mouth, don't worry. I was gonna ask you, does it have to look any different than a normal apology? Except maybe with some supports for, like, language or anything like that. But does it have to look any different than a normal apology?
Not necessarily. Discretions. That was the word I was attempting to remember earlier. Depending on the discretions of the person being offended or the person who accidentally offended, apologies must and should look different. Again, depending on the scale of the issue itself. But other than that, it should not look any different than any other apology for any compared to like any apology for any similar offense not related to neurodiversity.
I think that circles back really nicely to one of the main running themes, which is look at us as a person, not as the diagnosis, right? The apology doesn't need to be special because there's a label. It's caring for the person beneath it
Yes.
all.
Mm-hmm.
hmm And one last thing I want to talk about is just the idea of inclusion. So, a
Yeah.
lot of people on your survey talked about how, be it they watch their kid or they themselves have experienced being excluded by people. And the really big running sentiment was look and find a way to include me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what's your experience been with that sort of inclusion or being excluded from anything in your life?
Well, firstly, I understand that a lot of neurodiverse, not that this is absolutely any excuse to like this sort of extreme isolation a lot of neurodivergent people feel, but I understand that we can be awkward in public, which is like I said in what like I said earlier, can be where masking can serve to be a tool, if anything. But I still think that when I think back to this sort of ostracization, especially in schools, is where I've seen it. I myself am in school. It stems from the fact that they either A, don't know how to interact with someone like myself, or B, they simply don't want to, which can also stem from a lack of information. So, to conquer that, I would simply suggest, again, seeing the person before the diagnosis. So, treat them as any other person, which means treating them no better or no worse than any person, because overall, at risk of sounding repetitive, they are a person, a human being, and that comes with it comes with a level of respect and dignity between both parties in any scenario.
So many people in your survey said that. They just said there needs to be awareness. There needs to be an understanding that even though this person is different, they should be included. And that sometimes there might need to be things given to them, like accommodations, to make sure that they can participate.
Yes.
Um, is there anything in your life, like an accommodation or something that you have that helps you be able to participate?
Um, well, in terms of socially, I actually think that my biggest accommodation would probably be my family, who I'm thankful for because they all have um very developed understandings of neurodiversity. Um, Neurodiversities are largely genetic, so plenty of other people, especially in the maternal side of my family, do have diagnoses of autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, OCD, etc. So they help me socially, that is, by understanding my needs and what I need to achieve them, which may vary from um, reminding me that maybe a friend texted asking to do something that I may like to do, because I personally do not check my text, which is completely my own fault to think about when I think about it. But I think, as far as this goes, schools can absolutely help and other public situations, but really the sort of like innermost circle can be where you see the most success in terms of support of this kind.
And especially from an inner circle that understands.
Yes.
One of the other things someone had brought up in this survey is that just sometimes parents may not know, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Someone said parents need to be open minded and realize that without a diagnosis, there can't be a lot of help.
Yes.
Um, and then with services, a child can learn to cope and thrive. So, what's your take on that?
That is absolutely true. I remember when my mom, she was trying to get it was for my it was either an IEP meeting or a 504 plan, I believe this year I have an IEP, I believe. She needed physical paperwork from a doctor to confirm that I needed this, because without that, the school board and the school itself could not practically do anything to help. So, yes, diagnoses are extremely important. As for the other part of that sentence, where parents don't seem to understand, I, as far as I can tell, imagine that stemming from going back to our sort of central theme, a lack of information or a prejudice about what neurodiversity is. Maybe they've had negative experiences before, or negative associations with the neurodiversity, or they've been told what this is before actually experiencing what their child is and can do, which is often a lot more than anyone would stereotype them to do.
All
So
right, let's bring it home. Are you ready to tie it together in a cute little bow?
I am.
All right. So it seems like the best way, or one of the best ways to support people who are neurodiverse, is to learn more, especially from people who identify that way, and also being willing to get to know the person beyond the label.
Yep.
Yep.
I would absolutely sort of, to recap everything we've said, that would be my thesis probably.
I took it from you, so it is your thesis. Don't worry.
Uh,
So,
that I suppose is the problem when you're as well spoken as I am. You begin to forget the things you say, no matter how revolutionary one of them may be, or like I said, how perfect considering. Like I said, that's an excellent recap of this episode.
fabulous. So this is the last episode. So if there's any parting words you have for your audience, be it anything we missed talking about, being it any morsels of information for support, or anything you want anybody to know about this topic you care a lot about.
Well, um, as I've alluded to and even stated in all of these episodes, I myself am neurodivergent. I have autism and general anxiety, depression, and OCD, none of which I believe hold me back or should hold me back from anything I so desire. I myself am very ambitious and intend to succeed in life, regardless of a diagnosis or what outdated textbooks may say about that diagnosis. And I believe that the same should be said to anyone with a neurodiversity, whether it be autism, Down syndrome, ADHD. They should all be entitled to fulfillment in their lives, and can be with the proper tools. I alluded to this before, but my family is extremely supportive, and I credit them largely to my not only my knowledge of neurodiversity, but my ability to succeed with neurodiversity. When it and this ranged from teaching me how to do basic masking within the scope of reason to help me, to sort of definitely that level of understanding how I think as I got older and became more opinionated. Um, my mom does work with um, neurodivergent children in my former middle school, and I can see how this this beautiful relationship interacted on its own. The room, at least in my school, and I understand others as well, was definitely isolated from the main school body. And the kids in there, they were all so wonderful. Most of them were absolutely thrilled to see people, especially me. They would wave at me, say hi, even if they couldn't speak for themselves, that their words or an iPad to use. And I hope in the future also that that relationship can be improved in schools, considering that's where they're going to spend the majority of their lives, at least for the first 20 years or so, where they're really going to like establish who they are. And I also, sort of rounding back to the first thing I said, believe that autism and neurodiversity should be um, represented more in the world for what it is. I myself chose this topic because it's something I'm passionate about. I'm well spoken, so I have the ability to speak about this. And I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. I know there are certain cultures or religious groups that may view this or have viewed this in the past as something to be ashamed of, but it's not. I'm sharing this openly because I have absolutely nothing to hide, and I have everything to share. And I hope that that comes across in the audience. But overall, I suppose I should round this off like how we began. My name is Sophie. I am a Girl Scout from Grafton, Massachusetts. Um, and I am neurodivergent. I'm not ashamed of it. And I hope that in the future, other neurodivergent people can learn to benefit from this podcast, whether it be directly or indirectly.